Plant Hunter Guy podcast.
Welcome to the next episode of the Plant Hunter Guy podcast. We're really excited to be joined by Joanna Han from Giki today. I've known Joanna for a long time, close friends, and we worked together at Streetscape, the social enterprise that I ran in my 20s. Fantastic to have you here.
Thank you for
Thanks
having me.
Down. So tell us a bit about what you're doing now, the journey you're on. Yeah.
So I obviously very much enjoyed working with you at Streetscape, but you did all the work. I was on your board. I got the easy ride. But after we worked together, and I went back to work, having taken a bit of time out to look after my young children, I set up Giki, which stands for Get Informed, Know Your Impact.
Cool.
And we set that up in 2017, really to help accelerate climate action. So started focusing on how we can help people, individuals, and then grew into what we can do to help businesses, and have worked. We use basically technology, so we're a tech company, but we also use a lot of kind of human support. And so it's a combination of tech and human support to help accelerate climate action.
And again, you do that through individuals, businesses, small and large, from what I've seen.
Exactly.
All the way across the board.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So we've created and run a number of different digital products. The first one was called Giki Badges, we loved Giki Badges. It was a supermarket scanning app. We rated about 250,000 UK supermarket products on sustainability, health and ethics. And you scan the barcode and it told you how well your supermarket product performed against various different indicators. So that was very much for the individual, for people just to understand more about what we buy. And we then had a product called Giki Zero, which we used to help companies mobilise their employees, help them understand about sustainability through their own lives. And in 2025, we launched our current kind of flagship product called Giki Actions, which helps small and medium-sized businesses make climate action plans and implement, report on them.
When I was at university, I studied accounting and finance, and one of my sort of paperwork was on CSR, corporate social responsibility, which was this was like 20 odd years ago, and it was quite early days, and only the big boys were having to do that. I think FTSE 250 at the time. So those actions that you've described, that's kind of I'm assuming very much part of the CSR strategy, but are they sort of things that everyone can implement?
Yeah, so in terms of the actions are across sectors. So we've already helped about 100 different sectors and cover about 180 different sectors.
Yeah.
But your point about CSR is really interesting. So CSR is obviously a corporate social responsibility, which is within a big business, often something that's quite, important. We're very much in the environment part, which sometimes sits within CSR, but usually actually sits apart as its own entity, so sustainability typically. But in small and medium-sized businesses, it might sit with the CEO, it might sit with the ops guy, it might sit with the person who put their hand up and was interested in it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So at the nursery, when I first got here, I was really keen to try and look at our plastic consumption, because obviously we're a container growing nursery, we have lots of pots, so we offered a voucher service. So customers bring back the pots and then we give them a voucher to spend. Nice. So although not huge amounts of money, if it's a lot of pots, it adds up and they can then buy some tools or whatever they want to do. But what was really interesting is when we spoke to all our staff, it was actually, is anyone interested here in it? And we found that 3 or 4 of the team have sort of taken that on board, and they help us to put initiatives in rather than it just coming from the top. It's really within the organisation. So is that quite a common thing?
Yeah.
Or does it just
You've got the dream green team.
We're trying, yeah.
Definitely, and people often say to us, it's the younger generations. And when we're recruiting, we get asked about what we're doing about sustainability. So there's definitely
Oh, really? So that's really interesting. That's been the pressure's on from there.
Yeah, the pressure tends to come from recruitment and employees and customers. Yeah. Particularly if you're working with other businesses. And sometimes business to consumer customers as well. Customers might think this is really important, or a values-driven organisation. The CEO might think this is really important. So we got to do this.
Yeah, but then you start to track the individuals that do. So it's kind of, the culture spreads, I suppose. So we worked together at Streetscape, which obviously was a registered charity. We talked about ourselves as a social enterprise, which it seemed like a space you were very interested in. What is it that drew you to both the non-for-profit or maybe social enterprise space?
I think we have a lot of rights in this country. We're extremely lucky to have rights, particularly as a woman. I'm very lucky to live in a country where we have equal rights, which is not given as a woman in many parts of the world. But with that, we also have responsibilities. And I want to spend my working life having something that has a positive impact on the world, which could come in many different shapes and forms. And Streetscape really appealed to me because it was helping people who were vulnerable, disadvantaged, who didn't have all the opportunities, often had very little opportunity, helping them find a path in life that could give them a good adulthood. And that was really compelling. And social good can come in so many different ways. And I think working in a working environment where you can be successful but also benefit society, that's hugely enriching. Yeah,
absolutely, agreed. For me, the social enterprise thing was definitely in South East London at the time, was just booming. There was this real culture towards it, and it felt a really exciting time to be involved in it. You mentioned about, I read before that you were the first female board member of CDP. How did that happen, and how did that feel?
It was great. It was a great opportunity, and I joined a board of, I think there were 4 men then, and I was the first woman. And I'm a big believer in female leadership. I think female leadership brings a different perspective. I think, there are massive gender stereotypes and I'm not going to fall into, but I think having a mix of representation on a board, I definitely noticed the dynamic changed when I was there, in that we had conversations in a different way. And I think it just helps to bring a different perspective and a different understanding of 50% of the population.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very, very important. It sort of seems crazy that it's even a conversation to be having, isn't it? It's mad. We just wouldn't ever report on anything. We just hire in the way we do. But it's been really interesting because our nursery manager, Abby, it used to be Jason, who's on our head of marketing, and there was a real shift when she came in. It was a different way of looking at things. But actually it meant that it was cool because we kept Jason involved, and between them we sort of, you just get that different take. It's really important, basically. So yeah, cool. So then you did that. We did Streetscape, and one of the things you introduced to was the funding network, which I just thought I'd mention because it was such an exciting place as a charity to go to, and you had to pitch your ideas, didn't you? So how did you got involved in that? Do you still have any involvement in them?
I don't actually, but they were a wonderful charity, as you say, where it was a group of normal individuals who wanted to give money to charity.
Yeah.
But you gave money by coming to an event where the charities came along and were vetted by the funding network. So the due diligence was done, and they'd pitch their idea, and then the charities would leave the room, and all the donors, it was a bit like an auction, £100, £200. It was really
exciting. Yeah.
And it was quite motivating, and it was really well structured so that people probably gave more than they would have done otherwise. And it was founded by this wonderful guy called Fred Mulder, who was actually one of our very, very early funders at Giki. And he just had this vision of, let's try and make it easier for people who, didn't need to be particularly wealthy, but who just wanted to give to good causes, and to do it in a fun and engaging way. And it was really, I think, really successful and one of its kind. It's still very much going today.
Yeah. And as a charity presenting there, it was quite daunting, but you got so much out of it. And then knowing that you would leave the room and all this happened, it was brilliant. It was great fun. So you said that So they weren't one of the founders was what helped with Giki, is that right? So how is Giki structured? Is it a business or is it a charity?
It's very much a business. It's a social. So we're a social enterprise and a B Corp. So at the beginning, we were fortunate to get some philanthropic funding, which helped us get going initially. But we are So we're a business with shareholders, but we also, as a social enterprise and a B Corp, our mission sits front and centre really, and is written into our articles. And it means that when we're making decisions, the mission is front and centre.
Not the profit.
Not the profit. And it does mean you make different decisions. And I think it means we make better decisions. But the incentive structure is different to a normal business.
So how do you keep on that path? Because it's quite hard. We have the same thing in part of our business. Our apprenticeship scheme is definitely part of the business. It's not a charity. However, we fund the apprenticeship scheme, but you have to you have to think differently when you're looking at that. For instance, we support their training costs, which you wouldn't necessarily do with the rest of the team. So do you purposefully have to check each other when you're having a meeting and make sure you remember that? Or is it just ingrained in what you're doing?
It's ingrained, but I think because we set Giki up for a particular purpose, and my co-founder left working in financial services in the city to do so, so it was a very, very conscious decision that I want to spend the rest of my career working on something that has a broader social purpose. And so we never struggle with that. But if you're trying to get rich, you probably would struggle with it.
Yeah, exactly. I understood. And as you scale up, you've got to, hiring is critical, that they're on that same pathway with you.
Absolutely. We've been really lucky with all the people that we've worked with, that they've really believed in the mission, even if they weren't particularly into it to start with. We were fortunate that we managed to create this sort of culture and system whereby everybody really bought into it. But we were, we've always been a small team, so it's probably a bit easier. We're never more than kind of 16, 17 people. So it was,
it's still big enough to having to manage that though. So a bit more about Giki. So you mentioned it's tech. How is the changing, with AI and everything else happening? Are you embracing that? Is that helping you on your mission?
Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. I mean, it makes you can scale yourselves. I mean, you can, if you harness it right, it is so powerful in terms of what it enables you to do faster and better. But you also have to understand its limitations. It makes stuff up. You can't just let it loose on something. It needs to be on very, very, very clear tram rails. But yes, I mean, it's an extremely exciting technology, but it also, with it, at a societal level, not particularly at a business level, but at a societal level, has huge ramifications, and they're not all good ones.
We're using it as much as we can, embracing it, particularly in our design team. So we use all of our skills, all of our many years of experience, but we use it to help with visuals once we've given it a few bits of information. And one thing that's happening in our industry is it's being challenged around the environmental costs of it. How do you cope with that, especially with what you're doing?
Yeah.
Because that's it's hard to embrace it and also recognise that that's a risk.
Yeah, so definitely, globally, the use of AI has massive energy demand. So currently, data centres use up about 1.5% to 2% of global energy use. That will increase with AI. It's already increasing. So, for example, Microsoft's carbon footprint increased in 2023, driven a lot by their increased usage of AI, having been, on a trajectory of emissions reduction. So that is a big challenge. At an individual level, an AI search has a greater footprint than a Google search, and generation of images via AI has, again, a larger footprint. But compare that to driving a mile in your petrol car, it's less. So it's like, collectively, just like transport emissions are about 16% of total global emissions, massive. But in one particular, one AI search is relatively small compared to a lot of the other things we do in our lifestyle. So it's always that balance and using it efficiently and effectively. And I think it's always, like so many of these decisions, it's about the context of, what would you be doing? What would you be doing otherwise? If you weren't doing it, what would be? You can create your tech product and tech stack to be the most energy efficient possible, but does the outcome serve the purpose to help other people reduce their emissions? So there's always these balances and these decisions that you've got to make that are not always easy.
Really interesting, yeah. I mean, in a very basic sense, we're able to do a huge amount remotely now. So we can design someone's garden without doing the driving,
exactly.
That's kind of a compromise, isn't it, on that side, and hopefully it will all improve in a way. It was really interesting what you said earlier about the fact that when you're hiring, when people are hiring, that there's more pressure on businesses from within staff. So why should the environment be important to us? Just a sort of general, why is it important to you?
Well, for me, I do genuinely believe it's one of the biggest societal challenges we're facing, because the world is already starting to change as a result of climate change, and we're just in the very early stages. So, very simple level, the rainfall we had in January was 2 or 3 times average. What does that do? It causes floods, which means it's part of people to get to work. It affects public transport. The roads have got more potholes in because the surface can't take the rain. All of these kind of micro impacts. If you look at them, it affects the farmers. When can they put the crops in the ground? All sorts of different knock-on effects that are already happening. And those are just a few very kind of simple examples. But it is and is already affecting all of us. People don't always make the connection, but in terms of the sort of bigger picture, it is already causing migration, because in certain parts of the world you can't grow crops in the same way that you used to be able to. It's causing wildfires. We saw in California last year, not just the vulnerable affected, the very wealthy affected. You're not immune from it just because you have a lot of money. You can't protect yourself from it. So the knock-on effects for society, before you even start thinking about the impacts on nature, which are devastating in some situations, and I'm a real nature lover, and we know what the solutions are and we know how to solve it, for me that's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously that's what Giki does, and it's a huge amount about education. So from an individual's point of view, how would they engage, not knowing who you are and what you do, how would they engage with you, and how would it help them to improve their sort of impact?
So for individuals, we've got this really cool little tool that you can find online called Giki Guides. It's completely free. You don't have a login or anything. You just use it to understand all sorts of different things around your lifestyle. And from, how good is an EV? How does an AI search compare to, your bowl of porridge or whatever it might be? To how, things like commuting and home working surveys for businesses. So loads of different little tools that are designed to be really quick and easy to use, really robust analysis and data behind them, but really user-friendly, just to help people understand and then make more informed choices, really, from an individual perspective.
Brilliant. And that's free, did you say?
Yeah, that's free. So Giki Guides for individuals. I mean, people in businesses can use it as well, but it's really designed for individuals.
We'll put a link to that below. Okay, so now going into businesses, so someone here, they're coming from their business isn't very good at this, and maybe they want some help. How would they engage with you?
Yeah, so the way that we work with mainly small and medium-sized businesses at the moment is we use our platform called Giki Actions, which is designed to help companies build, implement, and report on a climate action plan in a super time efficient, resource efficient way. So most companies who use it come to one of our workshops, which we run with local government. We might run with large enterprises who want to help their suppliers. We do quite a lot of work with kind of local groups who want to help, local businesses. They come along to a workshop. We just did one this morning, actually, with Wealdon District Council, so businesses in East Sussex. And they all come along, whatever sector they are. It might be a hairdresser, might be a vet, might be a, you name it, coffee roaster. And they build their action plan on the call, and then they leave, and it's like, great, we've been here for an hour and we've got an action plan, and they can, access all sorts of ongoing support and resources so they can implement. And
those workshops, they're all on the website, aren't they? It's really clear and easy to find, and people can book in to do it in that way.
Exactly.
Jay needs to do that. Jay, if you're watching, we've got to do it. Cool. Okay. And then for larger businesses, do they still engage in that way too?
They do. I mean, we have had some. I mean, although we haven't really. Our assumption has always been larger businesses have internal teams who can do this for them themselves, but we have taken quite a lot of larger businesses through this already, and they've found it really useful as well. But typically how we work with most larger businesses is we have as a larger business, we want to engage our suppliers. Most business carbon emissions actually sit within the supply chain usually, so that's the typical profile of many companies. So companies who are really focused on sustainability might well want to start helping their suppliers on this pathway as well. So we ran a workshop with Severn Trent recently, for example, with their suppliers to, all sorts of amazingly technical water related companies who, needed and wanted to plan out what they were going to do about.
So they would come as a business, but they would also bring suppliers too.
Exactly.
Wow, we've just been certified. It's called Plant Healthy, and it's a scheme that means that we're sort of it's essentially sort of, I suppose, documenting our movement of plants. Okay, we call it pest control, but when plants come in, we have to check them before they go out and all those things. But just by going through that process, it really helps just to sort of smooth things out. So although we were doing really quite well with it, it was just talking to someone through it and documenting, which I'm assuming probably sounds like the same. That workshop will help someone to go through that.
Yeah, well, it helps the business. So for example, if architectural plants had a plastic pot supplier, for example, that you wanted them to be more sustainable, then you could say, right, plastic pot supplier, please go and work with Giki to
and it puts pressure. That's brilliant. Yeah. So that's exactly how Plant Healthy is, and we've really created better relationships with our suppliers, and the ones that want to basically work with us in that way, they've stuck around, and we then sort of stopped working with other suppliers. So, okay, brilliant.
Interesting. You're very innovative. That's bold.
Good. What happened was we told all of the suppliers that we would be doing this. And then when plants come, we give feedback, and not everyone wants that feedback. But it was really important. Otherwise, we're just doing it for ticking boxes, which we definitely didn't want to do. So I suppose it was pretty bold, but it's also driven us to grow more ourselves. So it's that change of behaviour within.
And that gives you more independence and more control.
So ultimately, if you don't like it, then we've got to do something about it, which we had to do. So I think the pot thing is something we've got to look at more, because there are options for it. You talked about B Corp earlier, and I hear that and see the logo a lot. Can you just explain what that means?
Yeah, so B Corp is a certification process. It came out of the US, and it stands for B Corporation. And the idea behind B Corp is business can be a force for good. And if you are a B Corp, you have demonstrated, and you've gone through a pretty rigorous certification process, that you've structured your business such that you are effectively a positive influence on society, or delivering something positive to society. So they've actually just recently updated the standards and the certification. So there are 7 different themes, one of which is climate action, but the others are around people, fair treatment of people, all of the CSR related issues that we were talking about earlier, that you need to evidence that you have effectively good approaches, and you really have got these practices embedded within the business, and you certify about every 3 years. And I think people who are B Corps, because they know it's such it's onerous, it's an onerous process to go through, but when you get through it, there's a real camaraderie of, oh wow, you're a B Corp, we know how hard that is, so we know it's really embedded in your business, and there's a kind of very strong respect within that community.
That's brilliant. Of people who've got and do you tend to find then there's connections formed within it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it is. It's a nice community.
Oh, that's
very
brilliant.
Nice community.
Yeah, because you see it more and more, and it's something that probably we should, again, when we got time, have a look at that too, because it sounds like it could be something interesting for us. Cool. And 2025, it says you celebrated 1 million climate actions. Tell us, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the great thing about tech products is that you track a lot of stuff. So so we tracked with our with our all of our products. Where people take a positive action, which could be anything from buying an EV to changing their heating systems in their house to like super simple, I'm going to improve my recycling at home. Whenever anybody took any of those actions, that's all aggregated up, and that was when last year we celebrated the million actions, and that was working with sort of individuals within communities, but also a lot of people within businesses. So we worked with people like Accenture and NatWest and Deloitte, the BBC, all sorts of big businesses who really wanted to mobilise people.
So what's next then? If you've achieved those goals, what are you aiming for over the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
So I would love it if I knew what was going to happen in 3 to 5 years. I'd say very broadly help businesses build, implement and report on their climate action plans. And there are many businesses in the world. If we can help as many as possible get on that track, I'd be extremely happy. But in all honesty, where will we be in a year's time? You never know.
It's it feels like that at the moment. I agree. And if a business goes through that process, you said about B Corp, it's like a 3-year thing, but with regards to the reporting they do with yourself and through the workshops, do you recommend businesses come back to you a year later, or if once you've done it, or is it?
So it tends to be an ongoing process. So for B Corp, you report, each time you recertify, but you also have to evidence progress against your climate action plans. Other businesses report to their customers on an ongoing basis, for example. So some people who use Giki Actions would be in the procurement team, filling in RFPs, etc. So it very much depends on individual business needs, and that's one of the wonderful things about small and medium-sized businesses. They're so different, so many different business models, and so often they say to us we're unique because they've all grown up organically and with lots of different kind of parts. So it very much depends. From a reporting perspective, it might be annual, it might be ongoing on their website, it might be each time they're trying to win a new client, it might be for B Corp certification, all sorts of different things.
Yeah, okay, cool. So for an individual or a business, is there 1 or 2 things you can recommend that's good, like an action that everyone could follow that maybe they're not now?
I'd say, let's start with businesses. So one of the big challenges that businesses tell us about all the time is, how do I get internal buy-in?
Okay.
It's really hard to mobilise the whole team to get behind a sustainability action plan. So one thing that a lot of the businesses that we work with do is an energy treasure hunt. So they go round, send staff round, clipboard round a site, where can we save energy now? And like turning off monitors, making sure fridges are running optimally, to if you work in a factory, is that running optimally? So not identifying actions that are going to require any capital expenditure, just really about efficiency.
Quick fixes, cool.
Which, with the energy price where it is, that is a very appealing one for many different reasons.
All the power today is being run by our solar panels, which
that's fantastic.
Which is quite cool. So everything here today.
So fantastic.
So we were very lucky to be funded by Horsham District Council for 50% of it, and so we put them in, and that's made a massive impact. But we're still, it's almost made us more conscious of our energy consumption. Especially through the winter.
Yeah, so it's homegrown energy.
Yeah, and you're also you're aware when the sun isn't. Maybe we don't need that fridge on and those kind of things. So, do you find that with businesses, is there any difference between a smaller and a medium-sized company how agile they are at those kind of things, or is it just doesn't?
Totally depends.
It's just the team.
Depends on the team, depends on the resources. Often depends on the individuals involved, and how high a priority it is for the business as a whole.
That's a really good one. So that's the business. You got one for the
for individuals. I think my favourite one for individuals is change your electricity supplier to renewable energy. I mean, that is a really, really big win, and there are great, really good companies like Good Energy, Octopus, Ecotricity, And it used to be a lot more expensive. I think, increasingly there's price parity now, and that's a good one. You do it once and then you've got basically
that's incredible. So,
power in your home in terms of electricity.
And with those suppliers, is that 100% clean energy, or
those guys are? Some of the more mainstream might have a tariff that is worth investigating with a little bit more scrutiny.
Yeah, understood, because it sounds like a good story. They were excellent. So I didn't know about the latter. So that's really cool. Thank you. And last, just before we finish, so would you recommend someone running a social enterprise versus just a straight business if they're starting out for the first time?
I'd say it massively depends on your motivation. If you want to work really hard, feel a huge sense of satisfaction, and feel you're doing something that you really believe in, yes.
Yeah.
If you want to get rich quick, no.
Yeah. I think from my experience, I really like what I'm trying to do here, which is that we're a business, we need to make profit, but our decision making for certain parts of business has that social enterprise angle. So I think you could also look at that people could look at that as an option, couldn't they? But it's hard work.
Absolutely.
And you have to keep challenging yourself the whole time on decision making.
Yeah, and it means you've always got two tracks of decision making that you're following, not just the profit maximisation. You're following, are we achieving our social goals or mission?
While surviving. It's tough. Thank you so much for joining us. That's brilliant. Okay, you can see all of this through our YouTube or through Spotify, and follow there. Thank you.
The Plant Hunter Guy podcast.